Good evening. I'm Brent. I've been in Gainesville since 1989, and I've been in the commercial real estate business. I've been on the other side of the fence, but what I'm going to discuss with you and present to you is frankly a vision I've had about doing a land trust for 25 years. And I always knew I was going to do it. It was just going to be when I could afford to. After I fed my family, I could move what I feel the real calling for. And so you're going to learn a little bit about a brand new organization called the North Georgia Land Trust. And I realized I don't have my mic, which I promised to use. So I'm going to give you a brief presentation on the North Georgia Land Trust, and we'll see if this is something that you take to heart, if you'd like to be involved, if you'd like to spread the word. It's brand new, and I'll bring you up to date on where we are, how we've gotten here, and then see if it's something that you might be interested in. So there's our logo. Our logo was done, and what you're about to see was done for free, which now that I'm a nonprofit is my favorite word. And so thanks to John Vardaman at Morton, Vardaman and Carlson for doing this. If there's a few words I'd like you to remember, and only three, it's these three words. Everything that the North Georgia Land Trust does is local, voluntary, and forever. And this line right here is our tagline. So whatever we do is local. We'll have local input. We're going to be a local board of directors, which we have, and then forever and voluntary. So everything we do is voluntary. Every landowner that might like to work with us, every volunteer, every person that decides they'd like to donate to the land trust, voluntary is a key word. Our mission, we're community-based. That's simple, community-based. We plan on educating private landowners. That's one group of people that's going to be very important to us. Quick story. I was lucky enough to marry my wife, Paula Terry, at the time. I was lucky to be a new member of their family. They happened to own a lot of property in Huntsville, Alabama. And my father-in-law gave shares of that land and its value to everyone who entered the family. It was very nice, very altruistic. So there was several hundred acres of land as you go into Huntsville, Alabama. And I became an owner, and the family, all the family members had ownership in it. And then eventually we all started talking about what would we like to do with it. Well, a long story short, we sold some. It went to pay for college educations for our kids. Marvelous use of the money. There was some leftover land, about 200-300 acres. A long story short, we decided to donate it. Why did we do it? No other reason than it felt good. It just felt good. Had a great experience with the North Alabama Land Trust. We gave them the land. It went without a hitch. We promoted it because we wanted more people to give land. Very nice way to work with a local land trust. From then on in, 25 some odd years ago, I knew Gainesville, Georgia needed a land trust. Now we're the North Georgia Land Trust. We will be much bigger than Gainesville, Hall County. So if you live in Habersham, I got a call yesterday on property in Blue Ridge. That will all be in our geographical area. But very good way to start is educate private landowners. We'll create green space. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. And we'll permanently conserve land. Why? Because forever is a long time. Remember those words. What does a land trust do? A land trust, I just call it as a holding vehicle for land, and it's a nonprofit. So we've received our 501c3. If you ever would like to fill out that application, let me know. It was tough. It took a long time to get the IRS to send us back the letter. The only letter you want to receive from the IRS is that you have your 501c3. So we are a legal charity, and the North Georgia Community Foundation, before that, their board of directors agreed to be our fiscal sponsor because they believed in what we would be doing. And so very thankful to them. They started us, they allowed us to take in money very early, even though we didn't have a 501c3, to help get us started. How does a land trust work? Why would I want to know? Who do we work with? There's really two options that a landowner has if they'd like to donate land. One is they can literally donate it to us. We're a charity, they receive a large tax deduction. And who would do that? Well, it's right there. It's right there, it's the heart. You know, is their property valuable? Absolutely. Sometimes money isn't the key motivator. Sometimes the fact that a piece of property has been in your family for generations and have been handed down, and whoever owns it now might not like to see it developed. If you do want your property developed, please do. This land trust that we're doing will not be an anti-growth, anti-development land trust. We will not show up at rezoning meetings to say no. We are looking for people who simply would like to donate their land. If you'd like to build a Walmart, please build a Walmart. If you don't, we think we should spend just as much time as we do on economic development, also saving green space. We can do both at the same time. So that's the kind of land trust we'll be. Two options. A farmer or an individual here in the audience that has 100 acres, they can donate the property to us. When the land trust receives it, we sign an agreement and a deed that promises this property will never be developed, and forever is a long time. So that's what we take on as a responsibility to that owner. Our board of directors, it's our property now. So what do we do with it? Well, we wanted to make it available to you. If someone donates land, we're not just gonna sit there and look at it, although some, like Vistas, we will. But our plan is to make it usable for you and your family. How about Frisbee golf? How about picnic tables? How about hiking trails? All of that will be the use of properties that are donated, unless it's separately wanted different by the person doing the donation. We'll talk about it. So somebody can donate a piece of property, that's sort of simple, right? And receive a large tax deduction. The other way that you can do it is a conservation easement. Now, this is a little bit technical, but I've figured out, I think, a really good way to describe it to folks. If you own land, you have certain rights to that land. I call them a basket of development rights. You can subdivide your property. You can rezone your property if you'd like to. You can build cabins on it for your grandkids, or you can do about anything you'd like to do with it. You can farm it. If you're willing voluntarily to give up a few of those rights, it's called a conservation easement. Here's an example. I'm a farmer. I've got 200 acres in East Hall. I'd like to farm it all my life. I'd like to hand it down to my son or my daughter to farm it all their life. I love farming. I think it's important. I don't want my property to be developed. I'm willing to voluntarily give up the right to subdivide it in the future. Well, now it won't be a 200 lot residential subdivision. I might be also willing to say, you know what, I'd like to keep 4 or 5 acre tracts to build a cabin on it for my grandkids to live in. Okay, done. We'll let you put 5 cabins on it. There's other things that you can give up. Anything that you want, really. And so then you would donate that easement to the land trust. Our job is to make sure that that farmer and the people that live around it adhere to the easement. So we check on it as a land trust once a year. And we make sure that everybody is doing what they say they're going to do. Now, what are the advantages to you in doing that? The farmer agrees not to divide it, not to put cement roads on it, not to sell it to Walmart, not to rezone it commercially, a bundle of things that that farmer voluntarily says they're not going to do. The advantage to you and me as a Hull County taxpayer is the school system never has to educate 400 kids that it might have lived in that subdivision, right? Isn't that that's an advantage, I think. We don't have to buy buses for the school system. We don't have to have a police precinct nearby to provide security for that subdivision or whatever it's going to be. So don't have to run water and sewer to the property to serve it, because it's going to be a farm forever. That farmer will own the property forever. He doesn't have to sell it or give it away. He just agrees not to develop it. So do you see the potential advantages that we all benefit from if we can get a farmer that says, yeah, I'd like to do that? Well, conservation easements are very common throughout America. It's growing very quickly. That farmer receives a great tax deduction. So, a little technical, but I think you can take it. You get the property appraised. What's the property in East Hall worth right now if you have 100 acres? Let's say $20,000 an acre. Might be a rough amount that a property's worth in East Hall. If you agree to give up those development rights, I bet you the property might be worth $10,000 an acre now. So what happens to that farmer's taxes every single year that he pays to Hull County? They're cut in half. Plus, he receives the tax deduction of what the final appraisal value is of the property. If it used to be $20,000 an acre, now it's only worth 10. That's a huge 10,000 times 20. That's a $200,000 tax deduction that person gets for making that donation. So, advantages to the farmer or the landowner, and advantages to me and you who live here in Gainesville, Hull County, or North Georgia. Okay, I'm going to try this, and it's a little bit tricky audio-visual wise. What I'm going to play for you is a video that we had made to educate people on what a conservation easement is. It's because it's rather technical and it takes some work. But the Land Trust, we're preparing to do these and work with folks who would like to do them. And here's a great way that you can see what one is.
To purchase it, a place to raise your family, beauty, privacy, an investment, something to pass on. The fact is, your land represents more than just a dollar value. There's an emotional attachment to it, not just for you, but probably for your family. What happens to your land is up to you. So there are some important decisions to make. Take the Millers. Bob Miller has always loved hunting and fishing on his North Georgia property. Kay Miller loves birds and spending quiet mornings taking walks on their trails. Now they're approaching retirement and thinking about what will happen to their land after they die. Who will own it? How will it be used? They'd like to preserve it and not have it fall into a developer's hands where it could be turned into a housing development, and they'd like to leave it to their kids. At the same time, they want to ensure that the value of the land is available to them if they need it in retirement, and can be distributed equally among their children when they're gone. It sounds complicated, this business of making everyone happy. Unfortunately, for couples like the Millers, that can lead to indecision, inaction, and outcomes they don't want. Family arguments, the land being developed, even legal battles. Hard feelings and resentments can linger for years. They've seen these decisions tear other families apart. What you may not know is that protecting your land is easier than you think. It's even possible to protect one portion of your land while allowing another portion to provide income or options for the kids. For example, Bob and Kay could place a conservation easement on the land, preventing future development and preserving its natural condition forever, while setting aside 3 house lots that can be sold in the future. The house lots can provide income if needed later in life, or be given to the kids. They'll even get a tax deduction for donating the easement to a land trust or the community. Of course, this is just one option out of many that will allow you to pass your land on meet your financial goals, and ensure it isn't used for something you don't want. Bob and Kay are exploring their options. You owe it to yourself and your heirs to explore your options too, because doing something is better than doing nothing. It's your land. Don't let it be the cause of fighting in your family. Take steps now to determine its future and your legacy. To start exploring your options with the North Georgia Land Trust, email us or visit our website at northgeorgialandtrust.org. You might be surprised at what you can do to ensure your legacy and just how straightforward the process can be.
That gives you an idea. Bulli, lifelong learning, right? Has anyone heard or been involved in a conservation easement ever? Good. One. Okay. So two, great. So for those of you who haven't, now you have a good idea about the benefits of a conservation easement and how it benefits the citizenry, us, and the farmer or the person who's making the donation. I've already spoken about this. We're going to be a balanced land trust, not anti-development, just trying to find those that wish to have more green space and we'll advocate for it. I think it's about leaving a legacy. I don't want to overplay the emotional part, but that's the way I feel. When you go into Huntsville, Alabama, right now on 72, Huntsville's a beautiful town, much like Gainesville. I think people moved to Huntsville the reason maybe some of you did. Lake Lanier, Appalachian Mountains, outdoor, greenery. Those things meant something when I moved here. But in Huntsville, Alabama, when you go there now, you'll go into Huntsville on Highway 72 and there's a mountain to the right and there's a mountain to the left, and there will never be anything forever on either side. So that means a lot. Our partners, private landowners, estates, individual property owners, farmers, groups of people that own property that may like to donate it or like to do a conservation easement for tax reasons, etc. Corporate funders. When we go public, and we're public a little bit, but we still haven't we haven't done a foundational way of raising money. We haven't gone to individuals yet. We haven't done Facebook. We haven't done all those things to go public. I've just been speaking to people to give people a little flavor about what's going to be happening. Volunteers, developers, local governments. Here's a question I ask. Here's a quiz. How many, I hope some of you are familiar with the Chattahoochee Golf Course, just by raise of hands. Anybody's been there, been around it, familiar with it? So it's about 200, it's almost 300 acres. Do you know what it would take for that to be a 1,000 home residential subdivision? 3 people to vote on the city council. 3 of 5. It's owned by the city. And it's a great asset. And one can argue whether it's green space. I think the argument would be, would we want it as a community, would we want it to be a very large subdivision? I'm not sure you'd find a lot of people that would think that would be a good use. I don't think the city's going to do that. I don't. But can they? Yes, tomorrow. So, could they also vote with 3 of those same people to put it in a land trust? I mean, it doesn't have to be our land trust, and I don't personally care what land trust they choose, but could they say, they could write a government document that says this will be a golf course, we will use general practices to keep it green, and it'll be a golf course forever because that will be in the deed. And then it's protected, right? So that's an idea, or a way a government agency, Hall County, whatever government you would like, can work with a local land trust. Good example. 3 votes away. So a landowner, pretty simple. They get the feeling and the knowledge that they donated their land forever. It's part of the deed. Forever's a long time. Favorable tax incentives, we've spoken about those. Nice benefits, should be, right? Protect the land's basic qualities and everything that some of us would like, and make a permanent impact, a lasting legacy for a family. I'd like to be the most recognized and nonprofit in North Georgia. I really would. I'd like for there to be such a community involvement and liking of this idea that people are talking about it and talk favorably about it. Our goal is to protect 1,000 acres in North Georgia within the next couple of years. I think we stand a very good chance of actually exceeding that. The Huntsville Land Trust now has 10,000 acres that they've protected forever. They have 2,300 members of their land trust. So how does the land trust have funds available to do what we plan on doing? It'll be memberships, coming to people, citizens like you that say, hey, would you like to be a member? And you can join for $100 or $200 or on up if you'd like to make a real impact on green space. So eventually we'll go public with that, and then if you're interested, you can buy a membership and receive updates, and we'll have get-togethers focused on conservation and growing green space, particularly. I've been in the business world like many of you have for years, and running a nonprofit I have zero experience at. I just have a passion for starting this. But I always see when I've been on boards like the United Way, I see the CEOs and the executive office spending all their time raising money just to go on to the next year, and how laborious that is. My hope is that we can find people that have a real interest in this, and we can put enough money away where that executive director never has to go raise money, that we can literally live on interest. I think it's possible. That's my goal. We'll see. We're local board of directors. We just took a picture of all of this the other day. It's not live yet, but some names that you might know: Phil Benilli, R.K. Whitehead, Dixie Truelove, a farmer, philanthropist, Wes Robinson, a local real estate attorney, John Bardeman, who I've spoken about and gave a big thank you. I'm not going to go through all of our progress to date. It's a little dated, this slide, but we're a 501c3. We're all incorporated. The University of Georgia and their law students did all of our corporate work to help launch us with no charge. It was a pleasure working with them. The gal who runs their attorney group that worked with us, she was the Oconee Land Trust director for 15 years, and she's an attorney. So what a godsend that she called me, and anyway, just very good. I'll end really with my favorite quote. Means a lot to me. I have not been able to find who said it. I'd love to give them credit. Nevertheless.
Could you go to the last slide and just connect the dots to the green space, your previous slide?
Last one, yeah.
Okay. What you did to the right hand there, part of it.
Yeah. Okay. Over here on the right in the purple, the UDC code that is coming out in the long-term plan for Hall County. The Hall County government has decided to recognize the North Georgia Land Trust as a place to go in our community for its green space plans. So it's nice of them to already grab our name and put us in, codify us in the code as a place to go. So that meant a lot, and I think we'll be prepared to help.
One other item I wish you did, but I think it's important to go, that $2 million endowment on a year-to-year basis. You mentioned go out and inspect the land. I think it's very powerful what the trust does as a steward and a fiduciary for the donors, why they need this money, and that gives an opportunity for all citizens, non-landholders, to promote this concept of quality and green space. What does the physical money go to on a year-to-year basis?
Every penny that we raise will be used for green space, period. Nobody makes a penny. I am out of commercial real estate. Nobody makes a penny. Everyone's a volunteer. I'm a volunteer. Eventually we'll grow with a paid executive director and volunteers and paid staff, but we're starting. So when we talk about what the land trust has to do, if somebody were to give us a conservation easement, we legally, for IRS publications, we have to visit that land at least once a year, walk the property boundary, and make sure there hasn't been any kind of encroachments on the property, and that the landowner who gave us the easement and his family or her family has done what they've said they were going to do in the easement. That takes time, money, and effort. So that's an ongoing expense that the land trust has. So if somebody donates land, we will ask for what's called a stewardship donation. And it's a percentage of the value of the land, or it has to do with the size of the land. But we would ask that person to also make a donation that would be put into the land trust and used to monitor their property forever, a long time, right? So that's how the system works. And to meet IRS code, we have to do that.
Hey, Brent.
Yep.
Is there a minimum acreage? I mean, can somebody do this with 25 acres, 10 acres?
Bill, that is my number one question every single time, and it's a good one. The board of directors decides what kind of property we'll accept. It's just not everything. I've had everything calls already. No, there's no minimum. For instance, if there was an acre at the intersection of E.E. Butler and Jesse Jewell and it was undeveloped, would we take it? You bet. You know, we raise some money to plant some oak trees on it and put a picnic. You can imagine where a 1 acre piece would be very nice. And vistas is one of the categories of properties that qualify as a conservation easement or a donation. So vistas are very important, I think. Look at all the property around Lake Lanier that we, talk about protecting water. All our water comes from Lake Lanier. Wouldn't it be nice if we could find somebody that would like to donate some or do, that's a nice, Lake Lanier's important. So that's it. Yeah, I'd be glad to take some questions.
Are you in other counties besides Long County?
Well, we just started. In fact, we really haven't gone public. I think I've maybe had 10 or 12 presentations like this to people, groups, Kiwanis and board of directors. And so we chose the name North Georgia because I thought Gainesville-Hall County Land Trust would get pretty, would be pretty small, and I really wanted to be regional. Yes?
What you're describing is, to me, sounds, it's going to be a patchwork of little areas of acreage without a major visual impact. And, I guess I have trouble getting excited about that. The idea is wonderful, but how do you put these pieces of property that are not contiguous together to create something that visually and emotionally impactful?
That's a great question. I can tell you, A, you have to start somewhere. B, the reason I decided to start this trust is I didn't see a high impact regional land trust. Now, there are some, and I think they do a great job. Making it contiguous wouldn't be the goal. It would be nice, but not a goal. I'd love to have 100 acres every 5 miles apart. That was a place to go walk, to rejuvenate. We all know the feeling we get when we're walking down a creek and that cool breeze hits us and the pines are above us and the bird. That's what I envision. Now, eventually, as we grow, we'll have enough money to actually purchase property. I believe in land rights more than you can imagine. In my business, it's very important to me. I want someone to receive a value for their land. Eventually, we'll raise enough money and we'll be able to buy key pieces of property that a board of directors or a community says, this is important. Let's buy this. And if we can put them together, I think that's extra value, and we would most likely focus on pieces like that that are next to a state park to make it bigger, things like that. Yes, ma'am. And
Is there anybody on your board who is going to be looking at controlling invasive species on these pieces of property? Because it's one thing to preserve land, but if it's all invaded by invasive species, then we're not really preserving the native insects and bird populations of the North Georgia area.
Eventually, yes. The heavy lifting, in my opinion, is to gather land and to be able to control it so it's not developed. That's number one. Then, as we grow, as we collect money, if we do the right things, I hope it will be supported by the citizenry of North Georgia. So I understand that. I think that is important. Eventually, yes, but we can't afford a biologist. We can't afford to look at that issue yet. But yes, long term. Yes.
This is just a comment. Your problem is, of course, that the land is privately owned. I happened to listen to the Weather Channel the other day when they were talking about Hawaii and the tropical storm. For some reason, someone asked a question of how much land in Hawaii is privately owned. And the figure was astounding. It was 96%.
That was publicly owned?
No,
Privately.
Privately owned,
Okay.
96%.
Mhm.
Do you have any idea of what the private ownership percentage is in Hall County? Is it something like that, you think?
I don't. I imagine it could be somewhat less, and the reason is the Corps of Engineers owns, Lake Lanier's 36,000 acres, and then I don't know if that's included in, yeah. So, no, I
The big
don't.
problem is getting people to donate, having them get the idea that that's something they want to do, and hopefully, as you said, they may, if they have a financial incentive to do it, that may tip over into a positive outcome.
Well, I hope they will. Yeah. Yes, sorry.
Okay, there are other organizations that have been doing this for a long time, like Nature Conservancy. And have you partnered with them in any way to develop the underlying principles, or using they're very successful. And of course, success breeds success in this kind of endeavor. Have you engaged with them in any case, in any situation, to develop a plan for moving forward?
Not yet. I've attended, this has been going on, building this behind you, about a year. I've attended the Georgia Land Trust Alliance meeting 3 months ago down in south of Atlanta, and met with, the Conservancy was there, business cards, people's names, had lunch, got to know, but no, not yet. But yes, partner. We can be just a small portion. We're talking to people who've had an interest in donating their property, and I tell this to them sincerely. I really don't care if you'd like to, if you think we're a good fit and we're starting. I disclose that this is new to me, new to our board. We've got people that really care, but here's some other land trust, any land trust. I personally don't care. Just conserve your property, and then my kids can enjoy it, and your kids and my grandkids starting in September. So yeah. Any other questions?
We have
Okay.
some lovely county and state parks in the vicinity, and it sounds like it might be in competition with that.
No competition at all. This would just be an aside for smaller landowners, smaller farmers, people who would like to contribute to buy specific tracts in North Georgia, Gainesville, Hall County, to keep them green. No competition whatsoever with really anybody. no state parks. Those are the big boys. Yes, Olivia.
Do either the city or the county have any requirements about preserving the current parks or green space? They could sell it,
Well, back to Brent's point, that if it's not protected legally,
okay?
if it's not protected legally, they could take a vote and say,
I
yeah, that would be
see.
a
The three
nice
people
park
thing,
or a nice
okay.
division, subdivision. So they are very supportive of this because, again, if someone donates, the taxpayers aren't buying land, and the government officials encourage green space, go out and buy, because that, meets the goal without the taxpayers. But Splosh actually is, let you know, Splosh had $6 to $8 million allocated to green space, a lot of it to help continue the Island Trail.
Well, thank you. If you have a particular interest, northgeorgialandtrust.org, and I've got some cards up here if there's any interest. Thank you.
Thank you.